morning, Joyful Gathering.
Good morning. Good morning, Brenda.
And thank you, Gail, for your beautiful music, and Reverend Bet for that beautiful reading that goes perfectly along with today's talk. What a surprise it is for me, too, to be standing up here in front of you this morning, instead of Reverend Margaret, who could not be here. Today's talk title, I Surrender to Trust, is so perfect, especially for me, because this change of plans took place just a few days ago. I never could have imagined that there would come a day when I would volunteer to do a talk, let alone with just a few days to get ready and been excited about it. When I was in Joyful Gatherings ministerial program, the homiletics public speaking class absolutely terrified me. So, and I'm only exaggerating a little bit. So being able to speak before you today is an honor, and it's also a great testament to what our teachings can do for us, to being able to expand into things we never thought possible. So for this, I'm very grateful. And funny thing about this, and this is how the universe works too, I was looking through the September edition of the Science of Mind magazine, reading an affirmative prayer titled, I Surrender to Trust, when I received Reverend Margaret's text on Thursday evening. And I had just opened, this is really true, I had just opened a blank page on my computer screen and typed in that title, all the while thinking to myself, this is going to be what I want to talk about at my next talk at Joyful Gathering. So, little did I know at the time, well, I didn't know what it would include at that moment or that it would take place in 3 days. So let's begin. How many of you have had the chance to listen to the podcast that Reverend Margaret did recently with Reverend Dr. Thor Chagrin? I'm not sure of the pronunciation of his name. It's on his channel called All Revved Up. And how many of you even know about this podcast? Okay. So just a few of the ministers and practitioners at Joyful Gathering just received this information this week. So I didn't think there were many who were aware of it. But Reverend Margaret did a podcast with this gentleman that was at our Anton conference. And when you have a chance, please listen to it. She is, as we know, dynamic, powerful, and inspiring. And it's a really wonderful podcast. There's a link posted to the newsletter that you would have received on Friday, as well as to the website. It appears on the homepage, as well as under the ministry drop-down. So when you have a chance, listen to that, because for one thing, you'll hear Reverend Margaret say over and over again that she trusted the universe on her journey that led her to discovering New Thought, founding our spiritual center, and stepping into her power. She trusted the universe every step of the way by making decisions based on what felt right for her. And this goes along with today's message beautifully. She placed her trust in her God self, her God voice, and in doing so, she leads by example yet again. So one of my favorite lines, which I really love and use all the time, is, there is that within me which knows. And surrendering to trust, listening to this voice, is that part of us that knows, is the simple way of living the word trust. But listen to Ernest Holmes' words now from his book, this thing called You. It's pages 95 and 96. God is not only where you are, he is what you are. And since God does not go in search of himself, I need no longer go in search after him. Rather, I shall now live and think from the union which I already have. And Holmes also talks about his power on these pages. And he says, there is that within me which knows. I am not only one with this power is actually flowing through me now. I am not only unified with the divine presence around me, this presence is my presence. It is the presence of my real and true self. I am forever one with life. And so this message to you today is really this simple. Trust yourself. Trust what you love, trust what feels right for you, This is your voice, your God voice. It is who you are, and you were never separate from it. And though we may easily accept that there is already that within us, which knows, it can be difficult to recognize this in reality, in our daily lives. So why is this difficult? The inability to trust comes when emotions and situations arise that are difficult. From the long-held beliefs that we have, whether born into traumatic situations or not, from messages we've perceived and adopted that are untrue, and from our knee-jerk responses to them. From homes and situations we were born into, from race consciousness, from societal conditioning and values and expectations that we've adopted and imposed on ourselves. These experiences lead us to believe that the thoughts and feelings we are having are real, and they are, from the perspective of the human's experience. But they are not true from the perspective of who and what we are as divine beings. In Holmes' words, from the presence of my real and true self. The difficulties we experience and how we feel and what we believe as a result are real, but that does not mean that they are true. And please note the important distinction I'm making here between something feeling real and something being true. Do we have an understanding of this right now? Of that distinction? We may know this, but we do forget. And when we forget, the untruths begin to replace this truth. We lose our ability in those moments to trust, to move forward in the ease and the grace that we call God, to have peace, to live in joy, and to live as the love we've come here to be. But I imagine you already know this from your own experience. So what's next? We can honor ourselves in those feelings and thoughts even though untrue when they occur. And it's important that we do this. They are part of the experience of being human, of the contrast that we talk about. And it is this contrast that is our teacher, that can lead us into a greater understanding of what each of us has come here to know. This is the journey of the soul, the evolution that takes place as a result of grappling with the lessons to be gleaned from our human experience. The expansion, the deepening, the understanding of our meaning and purpose that each of us is seeking. But how do we do this? It starts with the simple recognition of when we are having thoughts and feelings that are not in alignment with our good. When those thoughts and feelings have overtaken us. In my experience, this always boils down to recognizing in those moments that we are coming from a place of fear in one form or another. We always talk about fear, and it's either fear or love. And for me, this recognition usually comes from the awareness of a need I have to control things when I'm not feeling safe, or a general discomfort in myself when my actions when actions I'm thinking about taking, or the aftermath of having already taken them, don't feel good. Sometimes our bodies will let us know, even to the point of manifesting as illness or disease, or we come to this realization through recognizing patterns that do not serve us in our lives. Loss, grief, turmoil, these can lead to many aha moments that are gifts. And there have been many aha moments in my life, and I know in yours too. And the realizations do not always come overnight. But sharing them is what we do for ourselves and for each other, and why we come here each week. My stories, and I've shared them before, involve the spiritual awakenings that took place for me when I clearly saw the connection between a diagnosis I had received and my thinking, which had caused the manifestation of a disease of the sympathetic nervous system, the result of a fight, flight, freeze coping mechanism I had adopted as a young child in order to feel safe, and had lived with throughout my life up until that point. And also when I grappled with the question of what I really believed about death when my son died, and I eventually came to know the answers in ways that now feel fully embodied. That there is no such thing as death. That this life experience that we take so seriously is but a blip on the screen. That it is an illusion, that we are pure energy, and that energy is never diminished, it only changes form. That the body is simply the temple of the soul for as long as we inhabit it. That consciousness survives because we are pure consciousness too. That we are never separate, that love never dies. In fact, that it can grow exponentially even through physical separation. And I mention these today because I understand the importance of them, of these experiences as part of my journey, what I've come here to learn. And I'm reminded of the ways in which the universe always supports me in this, always has my back, never brings something I can't handle, and brings experiences that are meant for my growth, that I hadn't been ready for, perhaps up until that time. A way to understand the deeper meaning and purpose of trust, that I was being called to surrender to trust, knowing that there is that within me that knows what to do and how to do it, and knowing that everything in my life is of the good, even though sometimes those gifts have come wrapped in horribly ugly and painful packaging. When I talk about trust, am I also talking about faith? Are the two interchangeable? When it comes to spirituality, they are often used interchangeably. They both relate to belief, but there are some differences. Faith is a belief in something that cannot be proven scientifically or empirically, a strong conviction, a deep assurance, and unwavering certainty. Trust is a belief or a confidence in someone or something based on past experiences or evidence, and becomes the ability to rely on that something even in the face of uncertainty or risk. So I think of it this way: faith is something we cultivate and establish within ourselves, while trust is a muscle we must exercise in order to have it. Today I'm asking you to build your trust muscle. I'm asking you to let go of and be more willing to cultivate faith in yourself, in your ability to surrender to trust, to surrender to knowing that there is already that within you which knows. And be prepared, this sometimes does require a leap of faith and the willingness to let go of the reins just a little bit. You came loaded with a GPS system when you came into this world. Your GPS, your God-powered self, was factory installed when you were created, part of the equipment package from the get-go. The system is part of all of us. It is the God self, and our GPS systems are designed perfectly, unlike man-made systems. They never fail. And Mother Nature teaches us this. She teaches us about trust all the time. Mother Nature does not question herself. The flowers bloom, the birds sing, the rain rains, the oceans flow, and contained within all of them is so much life that does not question or quarrel with itself. It does not question its reason for being nor its purpose. Does the flower ask, what color shall I be? Does the bird ask, what song shall I begin the day with? Well, actually I don't know, but I don't think so. Have you ever watched Canadian geese in their beautiful V formation as they fly south when the winter is coming? Do they question the wisdom of leaving? Do they wonder if they will reach their intended destination? Do they even question how they will get there? The best route to take? What the weather will be like along the way? I don't think so. They spend the warmer seasons with us fattening themselves up so they can make the trip each year, so that they can fly the long hours necessary each day. And they work together, supporting one another the whole time. There's no one leader. They take turns leading their formation, rotating in and out of that lead position so that no one tires too much, all the while honking encouragement to one another as they fly during the arduous journey. If one of them becomes too weak to go on, another will accompany them and stay with him or her on the ground until either the first recovers or dies, then continuing the journey onward. We are God's creatures too, asked to do the same, to know that there is already that within us which knows where to go and how to get there. But unlike the geese and all the beautiful other creations of Mother Nature, we do not always recognize or trust our GPS system. Instead, we question it, sometimes doubting, ignoring, and then losing our way. And though geese follow their God-powered self without question, they also take steps in advance to prepare themselves. They rest and they feed. So please understand when I'm talking about trusting your GPS system, I'm not also talking about abdicating your responsibility to take an active part in manifesting the kind of life you want to live, to continue caring for ourselves and others by maintaining our spiritual practices and by making choices that serve us. This is important. But let's look more deeply at the question of why. Why is it that we so often hesitate to simply and unequivocally trust and rely on our GPS? It is because of the messages and other influences we're constantly bombarded with. Messages about what we need to feel, what we need to fill our bodies and minds with in order to be healthy, what we need to have in order to be happy. These are the constructs of man, the constructs of the outer world that distract us from our GPS. That is one reason. And another is that, very simply put, the journey is sometimes arduous. Life can be hard. We do experience loss, grief, and turmoil. We want to avoid it, and we try to. This is natural. You see, we're made up of two parts that are seemingly opposed, but that work together. These are the GPS, the God-powered self, and the EPS, the ego-powered self. The ego-powered self sometimes gets a bad rap, but it is not bad. It is there to protect us and to ensure our physical survival. It is the part of us from which our coping mechanisms come. These mechanisms, put into place by the ego, feel necessary to our survival in the physical. And this dichotomy, the dichotomy between the GPS and the EPS, is the contrast we talk about. It illustrates what we were talking about when we say that we are divine beings having a human experience. Are you still with me on this?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The problem comes when the EPS overtakes the GPS, when the ego self, the human self, overpowers the God self, the divine self, in ways that don't serve us. When this happens, our lives become unmanageable. When the GPS is driving our train, we have peace. We experience the love, the joy, and the freedom that we seek. And when we trust our GPS and rely on it, this is how we open to the good and welcome it into our lives. When the ego self is in charge, our interpersonal relationships suffer just like all the other areas of our lives. And when this happens on a broad scale, the balance of power and peace throughout the world suffers. Suffice it to say that when the EPS is in charge, havoc reigns in both our personal and global experience. There is a certain balance that is necessary. But the problems that are attributed to the ego self are simply a matter of understanding our inner child, our shadow self. This sometimes unruly youngster is simply acting out, looking for our attention. This inner child that is part of us needs to be acknowledged, seen and heard. When he or she is acting up and acting out, they're asking for our attention, asking for love and acceptance, the love that becomes the healing power being called forth from us. And this is what I mean when I say that we need to honor all the parts of ourselves. And even though acknowledging those parts and dealing with them can be tiresome, denying them Abdicating them or criticizing them does not serve either. The ego self is not the bad guy here to sabotage us, but it is an important part of us that is trying to let us know what we need in order to heal and to then fully embody our wholeness, to live as and experience the love we've come here to be. Does this make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's take a moment now before we close to shift our energy by taking a big collective breath together. And let me reiterate today's simple message. Trust yourself. Trust what you love, what feels right for you. Trust that these are directing you to your good, that they are your voice, your God voice, directing you to your GPS, the God-powered self that is you. Please surrender and trust and easily accept that there is already that within you which knows. Reverend Margaret's talk title for today would have been Your Christmas Carol. Let's each one of us adopt a mantra for ourselves as we celebrate this season of light and love by letting go of any need to control or whatever else may be holding us back from surrendering and completely trusting in ourselves. Be gentle with yourself, give yourself grace, follow your heart knowing that this is the God within you that is you. And in order to anchor today's message and in closing, I would like us to repeat the following words together. And I would like us to do it with energy and enthusiasm.
Okay.
So if you would please repeat after me. There is that within me which knows.
There is that within me that knows.
I am not only this power.
I am not only this power.
This power is actually flowing through me now.
This power is actually flowing through me now.
I am not only unified with the divine presence around me.
I am not only unified with the divine presence around me.
This presence is my presence.
This presence is my presence.
It is the presence of my real and true self.
It is the presence of my real and true self.
As I take steps toward the possibilities found within surrender,
As I take steps with the possibilities found within,
I completely trust the opening of my life to
I-
all of the good.
I completely trust the opening of my life
to all of the
good.
good. And so it is.
And so it is.